Welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Self-Reflection and Assessment Toolkit with a focus on the high-yield practice, self-reported grades, student expectations. I am Sarah Adams, MTSS Elementary Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 1.
Hello, I am Matt Traskis, MTSS Resource Teacher with the High School Zone. Take a moment and type in the case-sensitive bit.ly that you see in the bottom left corner of your screen. bit.ly/self-reported grades, all in lowercase. Please take that and place it in your web browser, and this will give you access to the presentation and all resources within the presentation.
These are the components of MTSS multi-tiered systems of support. As you can see, MTSS provides multiple levels of support for all learners and aligns resources and support with our district's 6 systems for students and for teachers who deliver and support instruction. MTSS addresses academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It focuses on overall school improvement that is sustainable. Let me start by showing you the components of our department. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS. The MTSS Academic Department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. The supervisor and point of contact for this department is Donna Lawson. The MTSS Behavior Department supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including PBIS and restorative practices. The supervisor and point of contact for this department is Sandra Hensel. The goal of our department, the MTSS Engagement Department, is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. The supervisor and point of contact for our department is Dr. Naomi Brahim. 6 MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. Self-reflection and assessment enables students to accurately predict how they will perform on a given assessment. They have a clear understanding of what they know. Teaching students to set appropriate goals leads to higher student learning outcomes, which allows students who meet or exceed goals to increase their confidence. Minority students and students with disabilities tend to underestimate their achievement. The toolkit success criteria utilize self-reported grades to ensure students accurately understand and assess their progress towards goals. According to John Hattie, self-reported grades are allowing students to report their own assessment of their progress toward goals. With an effect size of 1.33, this practice has the greatest impact on student learning. Once a student has performed at a level that is beyond their own expectations, he or she gains confidence in his or her learning ability. You may hear self-reported grades being referred to as student expectations. In 2012, Hetty reformats his thinking, stating he would rename this learning strategy student expectations to express more clearly that this strategy involves the teacher finding out what are the student expectations and pushing the learner to exceed those expectations. Once a student has performed at a level that is beyond their own expectations, he or she gains confidence in his or her learning ability. Today, we will explore what it means for the academic growth of students to set high expectations for themselves. You, the learner, will know you have achieved this when you are able to create an effective rubric to guide students in making their goals visible and attainable. Let's start with 3 tips on self-reported grades. First, have students set expectations for their performance. Then help students set goals for overall learning. Next, have students self assess. If students have access to the rubric that will be used in grading, students can check and mark their own work for accuracy before it is graded. Whether students are predicting how they will perform, setting goals before learning, or self assessing as they learn, the key is that they are engaged in their own learning. They aren't just passive receivers of information. If we are asking students to self assess, we must do the same. Each year, we complete a professional growth plan, PGP, which allows us to set goals. For this activity, we are going to ask you to reflect on your goals and your progress toward those goals. Start by stating your goal on your PGP. Next, ask yourself these three questions: where do I stand now? And what do I still need to do to accomplish my goal? As a bonus, you could go back to the last few years and analyze your goals using the same process. Did you achieve your goals? We are going to watch a video of two students discussing self-reporting grade.
Student self-reported grading is the number one visible learning influence. The idea of student self-reported grading is that students keep track of their own grades, either predicting what the grade on an assignment will be or actively reporting what grade they would give themselves. The benefit of self-reported grading is that students are able to see themselves making progress, as well as draw connections between what factors are contributing to their success. For instance, the goal of a student reported grading is that a student who predicts she will ace an assignment will be able to personally claim the criteria needed for an A. Self-grading allows students to consciously monitor whether or not they are understanding the material being taught, allowing the student to become the active element in their learning.
Student self-reported grading more or less follows an organized process. It begins with a typical lesson where students learn the material from the teacher. The real student self-reported grading comes in when the teacher gives the students their assignment related to the lesson content. Student self-reported grading can take one of two forms. Either the student predicts what grade he will get on the assignment, or after completing the assignment and going over it with the class, he determines what grade he deserved based on the criteria he did or didn't meet in the assignment. So steps 2 and 3 in the process are where the actual student self-reported grading takes place, in direct connection to an assignment or assessment. However, the most important step in the student self-reported grading process is the teacher's step of engaging the student. After reviewing the student's self-reported grades, the teacher must try to engage the students at their individual levels of readiness. The real goal is not only to show students that they can, in fact, achieve their goals, but also to push students to then make higher goals for themselves.
Goal making is the heart and soul of student self-reported grading. John Hattie, who researched self-reported grading in several meta-analyses, later suggested that student expectations might be a better name than student self-reported grading. This diagram illustrated the difference between two classrooms, one that uses self-reported grading and one that does not. In the classroom with self-reported grading, the students not only achieve their goals, but raise their expectations for themselves, exceeding their own goals for higher and higher achievement. By contrast, in the classroom without student self-reported grading, the students are still learning, but because they are not being pushed to exceed their goals, their levels of achievement remain relatively stagnant.
One of the most important criteria to consider when measuring the impact of student self-reported grading is validity. Validity measures the accuracy with which a student's expectations match their real achievement. For instance, suppose a student predicts she will get a 90% but only objectively speaking achieves a 75%, then her validity will be lower than that of a student who predicts getting a 90% and actually achieves an 88%. Validity is mainly impacted by the academic maturity of the students who self-report their grades. Students with high cognitive abilities with a track record of achievement will be able to better gauge what score they will be getting. Based on the studies conducted by Creed, Thomas, Mabe, and West, students with good work ethic and high cognitive capacities have higher validity.
In Sticka et al.'s study, students' actual results were compared to students' self-predicted or self-reported grades. In this chart, the tan line in the center of each line indicates reliable, accurate results, whereas the blue bars represent results that were either underreported or left or overreported on the right. From this chart, it is clear that in most case studies, student self-reported grading was found to have high validity.
The basic do's and don'ts of self-reported grading are related to the situations in which it should be used. Firstly, student self-reported grading should be conducted by teachers who will proactively monitor students and hold them accountable to objective grading criteria. For instance, a student can't necessarily say, "I deserve an 85% on this assignment because I worked hard on it." The rationale behind their expectation must be related to global criteria. A student who said, "I deserve an 85% on this assignment because my sources were all credible and my research covers all the required topics," would be meeting a measurable standard. Secondly, the students who are reporting their grades must be responsible and mature, with high cognitive ability and a dedicated work ethic to ensure higher validity. Finally, self-reported grading works best in what Ross called low-stakes situations. Student self-reported grading should take place in the academic setting, not in the workforce or in a professional environment, where the habit of exceeding personal expectations is not as pressing as attaining an objective goal.
As mentioned, when students predict or self-report their own grades, they become the active elements in their learning. In an organized process, students first learn the material. Then they self-report by either predicting what grade they will get or after going over an assignment, they determine what grade they deserve based on criteria they did or did not meet on the assignment. The teacher engages at levels of readiness and pushes students to make higher goals for themselves.
As alluded to in the video, and backed by substantial research, goal setting is the first part of the process by which students assess themselves. Students first must have clear aspiration or a goal to move towards prior to determining if they are moving in the right direction. Focusing on their aspiration will enable them to concentrate on ways to improve. For example, students wishing to become doctors but struggle with science understand that it will be necessary for them to improve their mastery of science content in order to reach their goal. Knowing what they want to achieve, students who set goals typically increase their academic performance as they hold high expectations of themselves. In addition to better grades, students gain other intrinsic motivators such as greater self-confidence, as well as pride in their work. Take a moment to reflect on how you created your PGP. When most people set goals, they start by questioning themselves in order to gain clarity of what they really want to achieve. Students do not have much experience in the creation of goals and would benefit from a step-by-step process that breaks down effective goal-setting strategies into manageable questions. This practice should first be modeled by the teacher in order for students to fully grasp the process. Furthermore, the teacher continues to take an active role in student goal setting by checking in with students to monitor their progress. This question occurs more times than not in the classroom. Teachers feel as if they're doing all the work in order for students to improve. However, Effective self-assessment places the quality of learning in students' hands. They are the ones who must determine what they are doing well and what they may still need to improve upon. By setting up the classroom in a rotational workshop style of instruction, collaboration, and independent work, students can see where they need to be during the direct instruction, deepen their learning through collaboration, and finally practice what they have learned in order to begin the self-assessment process. This progression of lesson planning is similar to the I do, or the direct instruction, the we do, collaboration portion, and the you do, independent work model that many teachers employ already. In this model of instruction, students should be receiving timely feedback from the teacher at all steps. It is the feedback that becomes the most important aspect of the entire process, as is the teacher feedback that prompts the self-assessment of the student. On this slide, we have provided an article that models this entire process and explores the benefits and challenges associated with this way of teaching. If students are to reach their goals, then there must also be a way to pause and reflect on their journey. By having a set of questions to ask your students about their process, you are in turn setting them up for successful attainment of their goals. However, your goal as the teacher is not for students to always reach their goals. Remember, your goal is for help the students to self-assess. Goal setting is the first part of self-assessment process, as you need to know where you are going, but the teacher also needs to know where the student is going to push students to self-assess their progress toward the goal and not the achievement of that goal. By breaking down the goal into manageable units, the teacher has engaged the student in the self-assessment process. Typically, the questioning of the student happens during the student-teacher conference. These conferences can be formal or informal. However, the purpose is for the teacher to provide specific feedback in areas of assistance as well as points of praise. Furthermore, the teacher can provide individualized strategies for students that can definitely enhance their learning. More benefits of student conferences include putting the student in charge of their work, and also students can reflect or ask for clarification, and then adjust their goals to make them more attainable. As a review, in this presentation, we have explored how self-assessment can create academic growth for students. To review how this process takes place, students must begin with high expectations. These expectations can be supported through goal-setting practice and rubrics. These goals will improve performance in the classroom, increase motivation, pride in their work, and self-confidence. The steps that need to be followed to create these goals are supported with frequent feedback from the teacher and are provided to the student at minimum during the student check-in conferences. If instructional practices leave students feeling displaced, invisible, or unsafe, learning cannot happen. Cultural, social, and emotional responsiveness do not require the forfeiting of strong grade-level aligned instruction because it can utilize open-ended statements to allow for that self-reflection. The core part of strong instruction is responding to those cultural, social, and emotional needs of students. Still employing curriculum-based assessments that are culturally responsive, you can continue to validate the students being assessed. In classrooms where ECE students are present, increasing opportunities for students to display problem-solving skills using explicit instruction, guided practice, and modeling how-to strategies will always aid in their learning. Also, considering teaching students how to set goals allows students to evaluate their learning, and they can also aid in that student motivation. Finally, and also from our toolkit, for students to have a robust experience in content, they must be active in all steps of the learning process. By setting a goal, tracking that goal through reflection and self-assessment, students have employed many of the processes involved in deeper learning. As we close, we ask you, the teacher, to go through the process of self-assessment again by first reflecting on your goals. How can you use this process of goal setting for your students? And what components of the process do you find critical enough that you would emphasize them or even create a rubric about them for your students? As a part of any learning process, it is important to share your new ideas with others. Consider your next PLC meeting and see if you can incorporate this HYP, high yield practice, into your instructional unit. The PLC HYP planning tool is attached to aid you in this process. Thank you for joining us to learn more about self-reported grades or student expectations. For more information about the MTSS toolkits and other high yield practices, please visit our website.